I look so dreamy. You know, I'm not even all that much of an avid reader. I'm just going to go pretty much all out and say I am not the type of person who typically picks up a book and actually reads it page for page all the way through. But this book, which is also a classic, which probably everybody has read except me up to this point, is titled Of Mice and Men, and I must say I was absolutely blown away by it, and probably the reason why I finished it is because it's only about 107 pages long, which is, for me, the ideal length since I don't get distracted by any sorts of video games or anime along the way. Honestly, this book, I will say, it's one of those things where, wow, I haven't been this thoroughly moved by a short story, by a novella, in God knows how long, actually. Basically, the entire story is focused around, for those of you not in the know, because you're horribly uneducated if you are. I'm sorry, people. Some of you are. I was horribly uneducated before I read this book, so, you know, now I have been educated, and I think all of you, the rest of you, should probably do the same as well. But the story is basically focused around these two guys who are very poor, and they're going to work at this farm. Pretty sure it's a farm. It's a farm, I'm pretty sure, yes. You can see how accurate I usually have the fact-checking with this kind of stuff. But anyways, these two guys, one of them is a really smart, lean, kind of shorter guy. The other guy is a really tall behemoth of a guy, but he's not mentally right up in the head. I wouldn't say he's mentally ill, basically. That's the nicest way of putting it. And basically, the smaller guy, whose name is George, the taller guy, whose name is Lenny, well, George looks after Lenny, and Lenny really looks up to George like a father figure, like a brother, really. And so the two of them end up going to take this job, but the problem is that Lenny acts out violently sometimes when he's confused or hurt, or pretty much he just doesn't know how to control himself because his brain doesn't function that way. And the story goes through the struggles of these two men. And that's pretty much all you can say without giving too much away. But their only one dream in life is to obtain a property, is to buy a piece of land, stay there, and just live the simple life. That's like, it's such a strange, like, sort of message in this book, because you're getting to realize, like, the differences between eras. Like, look at what these men's ambitions were. It was so simple. It wasn't like, you know, I want to have a huge house and everything. They just wanted property so that they could live on their own terms, on their own basic terms. So that, I think there's a line in the book that's like, we could tell people to, like, get the hell out if we wanted to. We can toil the grass when we want to. We can do everything. We can be who we want to be with a piece of land. And someday we're going to get it, but first we have to conform to society's rules in order to get to that point. Well, it does end up being quite a tragedy by the end of it. I'm not going to give anything away, even though it's a classic book. But that ending, for any of you who have read it, is like so devastating and so just massively heartfelt. I was sitting there just almost in complete disbelief. And it really got me to thinking, it did, about the power of simplicity. It's a simple story. It's only about 100 pages long. It isn't an epic by any stretch, but the emotions run so deep that I swear there are layers in this story that go well beyond that of like your average 400 or 500 page book. It is absolutely touching on every single level. I don't think any human being could really read this book and not like it. I'm sure there's probably someone who doesn't, but this is a real classic, like in the very general sense of the word. And I also watched the film adaptation, which was done, I think, in 1992. There was more than one film adaptation, but there's one that's considered the most quintessential, and it has, that guy, John Malkovich. It has John Malkovich as Lenny. Very good movie if you're not into reading the book. I preferred the book, obviously, because I'm biased and I read the book first, which is typically what happens with book-to-film adaptations. It feels a little bit more forced than the book did, I guess. A little more melodramatic. but it's still it's one of the most accurate adaptations of a book that I think I've ever seen. It's almost word for word in most scenes. So, you know what, if you can't read the book, watch the film. You can see it on Netflix. It's absolutely fantastic. Look for the John Malkovich version of Mice and Men, and I think you will get a beautiful viewing if you're not already familiar with this particular story. So with that said, I am actually going to be looking out to actually reading more often. I actually have a huge list of well-known science fiction novels that I want to check out. Because I've said this a billion times over, but, when you're a writer or considering being a writer and planning to be a writer, you should probably actually read something. And I've begun to realize this, and I'm like, holy crap, maybe I should spend a little less time in front of the PSP and a little more time, flipping through pages on something. And it's like, yeah, why not? I have the time, so I've been reading a lot more books, a lot more articles, a lot more biographies and stuff, and I've been expanding my horizons a bit, and it's been very refreshing, I suppose. It's very different from my usual schedule, but, sometimes you have to switch things up a little bit. Alrighty, so I am going to kiss the camera.